Those who are just joining us, we're in the middle of Parashat Chayei Sarah. This is Shiur and Chumash Be'iyun. So we're learning the story now at Al Ein Hamayim, the Eved Avraham, sometimes referred to as Eliezer. Chazal certainly call him Eliezer. The Torah in one place refers to him explicitly as Eliezer, but we see throughout Perek Chaf Daled that his name is missing. Davka, he's anonymous. He's the Eved Avraham. He doesn't have an independent identity. He's really a shaliach. Last we pointed out that this Eved Avraham was sent off with some kind of a wish by Avraham Avinu, and the Mefarsha Mikra debate, is that a nevuah on the part of Avraham Avinu? It's a prophecy. He knows Avraham Avinu somehow that his Eved will be successful. So he tells him, don't worry, God's going to send his malach before you. Or is it actually some kind of a tefillah on the part of Avraham Avinu, where he has a hope and an aspiration? May it be that Hashem should be with you. It's like we say, a person will say to someone else, Hashem Yirachem. What does it mean, Hashem Yirachem? I know 100% Hashem will be Merachem in this case, whatever the situation is, that God will have mercy. No, it means I hope that Hashem will have mercy. It doesn't mean I'm a Navi because I said Hashem Yirachem. So could be. He also said, okay, that's what's going to happen over here. Now, when the Eved, who I call Eliezer, that's how I grew up. I mean, but we just realized on the level of B'derech HaPshat, there's no mention of his name. As he's standing already at the marketplace, at the place where he's going to meet all the people, it's a little shuk. It's something more basic than a shuk. I mentioned the other day, a shuk is busy. It's noisy. There are a lot of people. You can meet a lot of wonderful people there, but there's a hustle and a bustle. That's not what's going on at the Be'er. At the Be'er, the water is free. It's available to everyone. And it's a basic human need. And more than that, it's a basic animal need. When Eliezer, again, the Gemara refers to him obviously only as Eliezer, very rarely calls him the Eved Avram. He is that also. The Gemara Masechet Ta'anit points out that there were three people, Shishalu Shelo Kahogen. They asked something from Hashem in an inopportune way, in an inappropriate way. They should have not asked such a thing because it borders on what's called nichush. They're saying if X will happen, then Y will happen. They're setting up like some kind of a way that they're trying to, small d, divine what's meant to occur. What we saw last time was that there's a big debate among the Mefarshim. Is what Eliezer did really a type of nichush? Was that really what he did? Or was it a tefillah also of a sort? And that the way in which he set up this test was not that the woman who will give me and my camels to drink, that will be the woman. She'll have like a light on her head. She'll be shining. And then that'll be the woman. The point is, I'm looking for someone. What are the characteristics I'm looking for? So we know from what Avram Avinu told him previously, go to the place where I came from, go to the place where I was born, meaning there's something about the house, the area of Aram Naharayim where he's come to. But there's something else also. There's a dimension of Avram Avinu wanting to find someone from the family. What Eliezer is looking for is someone not only who is from the birthplace and maybe also from the family, but especially someone who has the right character traits. And there's a two-step here. Today, lahavdol fe'avdol, you'd call it on the phone, the two-step verification. Everyone has the two-step verification. You put in the password, then you have to put in a code. You need two things. And what we'll see here is that actually there was a two-step verification. There could have been a lot of kind people. Do the Jewish people, do our patriarchs and matriarchs, we have a lock on all chesed in the world is only us? There's no such thing as chasidei umot ha'olam? Of course there is. The point is that here, the Eved Avram says, I want to find two things. First, let's see what's going to happen. Is it going to be the right person in terms of the characteristics, the midot tovot? Number two, is this actually a person who, as it will turn out, is someone who heralds from that special family, the actual family looking for? If he was just looking for someone from the family, he shouldn't have stopped at the well. You know where he should have gone? He should have gone to the court, should have gone to City Hall and said, excuse me, do you know where the family of Betuel happens to live? He could have just gone to the front door, knock on the door and say, hi, do you have any daughters? Great. I'm looking for someone for my master's son who's your relative. We have to make a go of this. That's not what happened. Now, why didn't it happen? Because there was another element that Eliezer is looking for here. In a certain way, it seems to me, I could be mistaken about this, it doesn't say that Avram, as far as I recall, that Avram Avinu told him, you must go to the place and dafka only for my family. He just said, I don't want you to marry off my son to someone who is from the place of Canaan. But to take someone from Aram Naharaim, someone from Aram Naharaim, from the old country, from the Haim, someone who I remember from when I was a child, love dafka, someone who's my family. It's not clear. In other words, and when you go back, and I was looking at this the other day, when you look at Pasuk Daled, Chaf Daled, Ki el artzi ve'el maloti telech v'lakachti shal livni liyitzchak, and what you would have imagined it should say is like Lech lecha me'artzcha u'uladetcha b'beit avicha el artz asher eka. So it should have been Ki el artzi ve'el moladeti ve'el beit avi telech. That's not what it says. Why? I think because there's dafka in Indian here. He says, go to the place and you'll find someone, the right person. Shelly, give me half a minute. When he gets there and when he has his tefillah, if you look at Pasuk Yud Bet, we saw it last time. Again, verse 20, chapter 24, verse 12. Pasuk Yud Bet. Vayomar Hashem Elokei Adoni Avraham akrin al-fana yom v'asechesidi Adoni Avraham. Hine anochi nitzav al ein hamayim uvnot anshei ha'ir yotzot lishov mayim. Who is it? Family? No. The Benot Anshe Ha'ir. That's who's coming out. V'ayanara she'umar elea hatina chadech ve'eshte ve'amra shtei v'gam gmalecha ashke otah hochachta le'avdecha liyitzchak uvah eda ki asita chesim adoni. There's not a mention about the family. But when he's going to meet her, as soon as he asks and she says she's from the family, he can't get over it. It can't get better than this, right? So just to realize sort of how the setup is. Shelley, you had a question? Go ahead. Good morning.
I have a comment to make it murky.
Okay.
Remember, Abraham is originally from Ur of the Chaldees. He's not from Aram Naharaim. This is where he goes with his father Terach and his brother, and then he goes off when God talks to him to Eretz Israel. So somehow that's got to fit in.
It does fit in, but this is actually a big debate between the Ibn Ezra, the Ramban. It's back at the end of Parshat Noach, going into Parshat Lech Lecha. We talked about this already a few years ago when we were in Parshat Lech Lecha. Is Avram Avinu actually born in Ur Kasdim, or is Avram Avinu actually born in Haran, of which Aram Naharaim seems to be some kind of a suburb, so to speak, and he went to Ur Kasdim with his father for business. The family had moved there, and therefore, when they were ejected from there, maybe they were going back to this other place. It's not clear. The Ramban has this whole idea that Avram Avinu was Nolad Bekuta, in the place of Kuta, and then he moved from this place to that. It's not clear. There's a big discussion about where they were really from, where they had arrived at. If you maintain, by the way, that they did not come originally from Haran, but Haran was a way station, it wasn't a return to Haran, but it was an initial journey to Haran at the end of Parshat Noach, and that they encamped there. So there is a question there, right? But he doesn't say, go to my family. He doesn't tell the Eved, go find someone who I'm related to. And when the Torah wants us to know who is actually found, just look at Pasuk Tetvav. Vayihihu terem kilal daber. I'll try not to sing the beautiful Yishai Ribo song that includes his words from the Psukim in the song. We'll leave Yishai Ribo on the side. Vayahu terem kilal daber. He's still in the middle of the tefillah. He's still in the middle of the words, still speaking. V'hinei, behold, Rivka yotzet, and Rivka is coming out, and the Torah, not Elliot, he doesn't know. We know. Lahavdal fe'avdalot in English literature, what's it called? Dramatic irony. The reader knows more than the characters in the story. Lahavdal, but that is what's happening. V'nei Rivka yotzeit, asher yudaliv tuel, ben Milka, eshet Nachor, achi Avraham, v'chada al shichma. She didn't just come with the kad is on her shoulder. She came with her family tree. The Torah wants you to understand. Look, She's the daughter of Betuel. Betuel is descended of Milka, who's married to Nachor, and Nachor is the brother of Avraham. As some of the Mefarshim point out, the word Milka here, the word Milka reminds us that Milka is married to Nachor. Who is Milka? Sounds like the word Malka. So Milka, who's Milka?
Sora's probably sister. Sora's sister.
Yeah, the Gemara maintains in one place that at the end of Parshat Noach, chapter 11, verse 29, Vayikach Avram v'Nachor lahem nashim, Shem Eshet Avram Sarai, v'Shem Eshet Nachor Milka, Bat Haran, Avi Milka v'Avi Yiska. So Terach has three sons, Avram, Nachor, Haran. Haran has two daughters. One is called Yiska, one is called Milka. He has a son named Lot. Haran dies. Avram and Nachor marry the two sisters, Milka and Yiska. And then Lot is adopted by Avraham and Sarai. The Gemara identifies Yiska, Rashi quotes it, Zu Sarah. It's the same person. Why did she have two names? Why do a lot of people have two names? It was the given name and then the name she acquired. The name that some people call Hashem Shesacha B'Ruach HaKodesh, V'Shakol Sachin B'Yofya. She was very beautiful, right? V'od Yiska Lashon Nesichut, Kimo Sarah Lashon Srara. So Sarah is like Srara, authority. Yiska, like Nesichut, she was a princess. She was an aristocrat. So if this is true, then when you look at the pasuk here, Rivka is not only related to Avraham Avinu in as much as Avraham's brother Nachor, this is his granddaughter, but also that it's Sarah Imenu's, what would it be? It was Sarah Imenu's sister's granddaughter as well. You follow?
Grandniece.
Grandniece of Sarah Imenu, yeah. You follow what's going on? In other words, the Torah is in a certain way highlighting by reminding us that she's the daughter of Betuel, who is himself the son of Milka plus Nachor. Well, Milka is the sister of Sarah. It's all in the family. We don't know that yet. Well, I mean, we know that. Eliezer does not know that yet. The Ibn Ezra takes, as is his way, a certain liberty that was probably one of the reasons why a lot of other Parshanei HaMikra at times held the Ibn Ezra at a little bit at arm's length. The Ibn Ezra was keen on trying to understand the pshat of the Mikra, and at times, not often, but at times, he was willing to say things like, if this is a received tradition, I have to accept this interpretation that Chazal have made, then fine. But if I don't have to, let me tell you what I think logically is really going on here. And on this very pasuk, it's really the pasuk before Atahu Chachta, and pasuk Yodalad, Ibn Ezra says, when Eliezer set up this test, we should not think that he was doing something improper or something inappropriate. He says, I really don't understand. He says, V'rabim yitmehu be'omram, Rabim tamhu or yitmehu, depending how you read it, be'omram shelo sha'al kahogan, he didn't ask in an appropriate way. The Ibn Ezra says, V'lo yadati lama, I don't know why they said such a thing. Kilo aita na'ara acher shtashkeh v'tashkeh ligmalav u'matz'ah she'im mishpacha acheret hayozevot v'lo yifsid klum. Let's say, Ibn Ezra says, let's say in the end it was the wrong woman. Let's say another woman had come over and given water to him and his camels, and then he asked her, what family are you from? And it was another family. Ibn Ezra says, okay, no harm done. He would have just moved on and gone to something else. He would have gone to find another woman afterward. There was nothing, he thinks it was nothing really inappropriate, right? He asked her, whose daughter are you? He's going to ask her the question. And then she's going to say, and then he's going to give the jewelry, etc. So the point is, to Ibn Ezra, contra the Gemara. It's a beferish Gemara Masechet Tani Daf Dalid that he was Shol Shlo Kahogen. We saw some Mefarshim last time and said, well, maybe not so terrible. Ibn Ezra says, I don't even understand on its merits why it could be a problem. Like, what was the downside? he didn't actually, when she gives him the water, as we will see, he did not immediately click his heels, jump for joy, decide it was the right woman. He asked her the question, and when she answered, then he knew for sure. So just different ways to think about it. But we know the whole whatever the word is, the whole patrimony before she even comes to the well. She's arriving, right? Karen, you want to say something? Go ahead, please. Just unmute yourself because I can't hear.
I was just thinking while you said that perhaps this was either he had to rule her in or rule her out, because we wouldn't want him to pick someone else and then later find out, oh, I didn't even check out the family.
Right.
So this is good that she came, and either she's the one or he can rule her out and not look back.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's even Ezra's point. There are others who see it more critically because they say, why did he set up what looks like he's like setting some kind of divination? And those who say it's not really divination say, well, wait a second, there's a logic here. It's not like he said, we saw some examples that Chazal say it's prohibited in the Torah to be a person who says, my bread fell out of I was eating my bread and it fell, so now I'm no longer going to leave my house and do business today. It's prohibited to say, in English, you would say, a black cat crossed my path, so therefore the stock market will crash. I shouldn't invest. A Jew is not allowed to say that. But if a Jew looks outside and they say, today's a cloudy day, think I'm going to be in a bad mood, and I think the world's in a bad mood, and I don't want to do business today, that's not a problem. It's not nichush. This is using your seichel. You just, right? When it's a cloudy day, I don't like to do business. Why? Everyone's in a foul mood, which in Chicago is pretty bad because it's pretty often, if you thought that, right? But when we speak about this, he wanted to know who's kind. So how do you figure out who's kind at the well? Don't ask them for money. It's a well. The currency is water. So, no, the savir. Everything makes sense. So that's why it's debatable if he was doing something wrong, as you say. If she wasn't the right one, okay, let's move on. Next person, Okay. So when she arrives, we actually have to learn something about her beauty in the story. Tovat mar'eh me'od. Just to point out, again, dramatic irony, meaning, what does Eliezer know? We know. She comes across being described as on one level of being very beautiful, but being very beautiful did not therefore mean, lo aleinu, that she was loose, that she was lacking in sniut, in a sense of privacy and dignity. Yeah, the two things could live together. And if you go back one pasuk, actually, as we learn later on, she could be the daughter of Betuel, who turns out is a bit of a crooked guy, but she's also heralding from this very, very strong stock, right? Lavan's her brother. We're about to meet Lavan, yeah. But she stands out. She's the diamond in the rough kind of thing. So here we have she's very beautiful. But don't think that means, therefore, Lolina, she's promiscuous. She doesn't care about morality. No, on the contrary, she's very careful. And Davka, she goes down, Vateret Ha'ain, I mean, she goes down into the area of the well, and she fills up the cod, the pitcher, and she comes up. So, of course, everybody, no doubt, wants to know, how old was Rivka Imenu at this moment? How old was she? Yeah. So obviously, that how old could she be? And of course, we know what Chazal have to say about it, which we'll come to in a minute, but we'll see momentarily. Chazal themselves didn't agree. Lord, give me a half sec. There is indeed, Seder Olam Rabbah has a whole calculation that maybe she was all of 3 years old, in which case this pasuk is, I sure hope so, that she's still, pure, etc. Number one. Number two, the same Seder Olam Rabbah then later on says, no, she was 14. Fewer people quote that one. And as we will see, maybe not even 14. She's older. Why do people think she's 3? We'll come back to that in a minute, because there is a certain inherent logic to it, even though you and I probably bristle at the prospect that she's 3 years old and someone sent her to a well and then she's getting married and the whole thing. Yeah. Okay. But come back to in a sec. Lori, go ahead. Hi.
Just a question. We know the Torah doesn't give us extra wording. So why does it have to say betula v'ish lo yida'ah? Isn't that what betula means? Like one or the other? Why do we need both?
So Rashi makes the point here that both of these are necessary because the level of promiscuity and strangeness in the time period of the ancients in the ancient Near East was such that a person could somehow remain a betula and at the same time have engaged in promiscuous behavior. And the point is, it's not just that she's a betula, she has that status, but also ish lo yada'a, she was not licentious or promiscuous any other way either. And Dafka, by the highlighting of this point, in a society that doesn't have the same moral bearings is pretty important. Let's say, first we get the patrimony. Here's her family links, and now we get here's her, whatever the word is, her, her level of tzniut and of holiness, whatever you want to say, right? She had that sense of self. It was probably a family value, by the way, not just hers. I'll give some credit to the family there as well. Also, she fills up the cod. It's a big thing. It's a big jug. You're feeding your family. It's not like it's like a little pitcher like you put on the table. A cod is a big thing. So again, depending how old she is, how is she balancing it and dealing with it, etc. There's a whole discussion about the fact that she's described in this pasuk as both a na'ara, and being a na'ara sounds like a betula is only once a woman, a girl becomes a na'ara, and it's just to be a little bit older. She's not a katana anymore. There's a whole back and forth diun, like we actually learn the halacha from this, and the Gemara it learns in the pasuk tovat mare meod betula that a betula can only be a na'ara. So therefore, she must have been a na'ara. So how could anyone argue she was even less than that, right? So there are Rishonim who hold in terms of her age. So the Rishonim who hold Tosfot Arosh, the Ramban, the Rashba, the Ritva, the Meiri, they say, yeah, the Gemara thinks she's older. The Medrash, Seder Olam Rabbah, thinks she was younger. She was like 3 years old. Now, how do we get to the 3 years old? We've talked about this many times, but just to rehash what we already know, just so it's clear. So if anyone comes across this sheer ages and ages hence, it's gonna be like, oh gosh, again with the 3. Okay, so first, the number, how the Seder Olam Rabbah gets to 3 is at the beginning of Parshat Toldot, it says that Yitzchak Avinu is 40 years old when he marries Rivka. It says so in the Torah. That's number 1. Number 2, it says that when Sarah Imenu died, she was 127, and we know that she was 90 at the moment when he was born. So if she died at 127 years of age, just do the math. So he's 37 years of age when she died. Everyone with me? Okay, and then we know that he's 40 when he's 40 when they get married, because the Torah explicitly says being a Parshat Toldot. Now here comes the leap. The leap is that, well, it's 2 leaps. Leap number 1 is that Sarah Imenu died 1 minute or 2 hours after the Akedah. So however old Yitzchak is at the Akedah is how old he is at the moment that Sarah Imenu dies. That's 1 leap, right? It means that you take the Medrash, that's actually Kahava. Historically, it was like one thing then to the other. They came directly from the Akedah and they went to bury Sarah. And leap number 2 is that between the story of the death of Sarah and and going back to the Akedah, between the Akedah and the death of Sarah Imenu, there's a little parsha. And the parsha is Avram Avinu got the news that his brother Nahor has all sorts of children. And on the list of children who was born there is Rivka Imenu. So let me play the film strip straight away. The Akedah finishes. As they're coming down the mountain, I don't know, a courier arrives. Avram gets a buzz on his phone. Mazel Tov, your brother has all sorts of children, including someone whose name is Rivka. she's on that list. You know when she was born? Right at the moment of the end of the Akedah. It's very beautiful. As Yitzchak Avinu is now this Kadosh V'Tahor is coming down from the Akedah, and he survived. So that's the moment when his immortal beloved is being born into the world. He came back to life, so to speak, spiritually. He has a new life. Now he has his Basheret is waiting for him. Beautiful. So she's born right there. Now, at that exact moment she's born, you with me? And then 10 minutes later, another buzz comes on the phone. Sarah died. They go to Kiryat Arba, they bury her. We know for sure if all that happened in the same day, so Yitzchak is 37. And Rivka was born right then. So if Rivka was born right then, and now they got married when Yitzchak's 40, so she must be only 3 years old. Everyone understand the progression? But there's some leaps over here. And you don't have to make those leaps. And the Ibn Ezra was big on this point. There are others as well. You know, if you want to say it has to be, he writes in one place, I think it's about this, Im Kabbalah Nekabel. This is like a received tradition, because he doesn't know. Is when you read this medrash, these midrashim, like, that's like telling us historical details, or is it meaningful information? It's Torah. We're learning it, but it's not that it's like it happened that way, because I could have played it without one or both of those leaps in the Medrash. I could have said Yitzchak Avinu was 6 years old at the Akedah, and as they were coming down, then Rivka was born. I could say he was 6 years old, 7 years old, coming down from the Akedah, and that was when Avram Avinu got the news that 2-3 years earlier, his brother had children who had children, and that's when Rivka was born. Maybe there he's only, it actually says in the pasuk, Vayugad la'Avraham. Avram got the news. Doesn't have to mean that she was born that minute. It's like could have been 6-7 years old. Then came the birth of Rivka, either that moment or 2-3 years before. It's a lumshana. It doesn't matter. And then whatever happens. We don't know the story. And then later on, Rivka, Sari Menu passed away, right? Later on, years later. What does Vayavo Avraham mean? He didn't come from the Akedah, as some write, from Har Moriah. He came from wherever he was. He was doing business. He happened to be in Beersheba that day. One more minute, Shelley. Alternatively, I could do it without the other leap. I could say, Yitzchak Avinu, Sari Menu died as a result of the Akedah. Fine. So she died as a result of the Akedah. It's a terrible tragedy. It's terrible. But when she died, he was 37, which means he's definitely 37 at the Akedah. If you say he was 37 at the Akedah, couldn't you still say that when he was coming down from the Akedah, Avram got the news that 10 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, the birth of the children of Nahor and Milka, including Betuel, who had a child named Rivka. Why is he getting the news now? So the Hemek Davar, the Netziv of Volozhin, makes this point. He says that, why are we only hearing about it now? First, Avraham Avinu, Sari Imenu, Yitzchak Avinu, they had to cement their sense of self. They had to cement their relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Once their Judaism was totally cemented within the family, now they could hear about dealing with the extended family, who maybe, I'm using my language, not his, maybe the rest of the family that wasn't so religious, or religious at all, but you understand. So, in other words, there's two midrashic leaps, right? That when she was born, in order to make the Seder Olam Rabbah piece happen. Now,
you're making a third leap.
Oh, sorry, Shelley, go ahead. Yeah, what's the third leap?
You're making a third leap by saying, because everybody's always saying that, although it's usually in chronological order, the Torah does not have to be in chronological order. It can be in subject order. So the leap that I feel that you're making is that Abraham is told about his family's birth right after the Akedah. Because it's put right after the Akedah, doesn't have to mean that he was told that.
It's true. Wait, but I'll tell you why I don't think it's a leap. Because in the Pshat, go back to chapter 22, we have, it's a rule of Parshanut, right? Once it actually uses the expression on the level of Pshat, chapter 22, right after the Akedah. I'm using the wrong Chumash here because it's It's 2 psukim on paper.
Vayehi acharei hadavorim is what you're
Yeah,
referring to?
vayechad dvarim ha'eleh. After these things. So it doesn't tell you what these things are. Occam's razor. So the level of pshat is, it's after what you just read before. Could it be long after? It could be long after. It doesn't have to be that he found out the minute he got down from the Akedah, but after these things. If you don't know what these things are, the pshat, that's not a leap. The pshat is that it's from what came before. Unless,
Okay,
I mean,
so
some
he
of there are
couldn't-
midrashim, some of there are midrashim that want to fill in what is the Dvar Ma'ela. So remember, that's the beginning of chapter 22 is also by Achar Dvarim Ha'ela. And Rashi has, it's after the Dvarim means not events, but it means the words between the Satan and Hashem. Maybe it's the words between Yitzchak and Yishmael, remember? And the Rashbam says, no, it's after the story of Avimelech and Fichol making a covenant with Avram. Now Avram got a test called the Akedah, right? So we don't have any midrashic reason to want to say that Avram means after some other event. And the midrashim don't say that there's any reason to push in that direction. And it makes sense in the flow of the pshat. After the events before, this is the next thing that happened. As opposed to the other things, which it does not say this is she lived and she died. When? Sometime. For sure he's 37 when she dies. We can't change that because the pshat tells she was 90 when he was born. And we can't change that. Yitzchak is 40. The 3 years have elapsed from the time of his mother's passing till he's married. But how old Rivka is? Again, so when the children come home from the kindergarten class and they have beautiful pictures of Rivka and she's 3 and she's holding the cod, to me, that's incredible. That's so beautiful. Why? Because my child maybe is a little child and say, what, I don't know, these are great tzaddikim, I don't know. You're 3 years old, you know what chesed you can do? You can take care of animals, take care of people. You can look for others. Yeah. 3 years old. Now the kid gets a little older. They say, wait a second, 3 years old. They got married. Wait a second. Well, what's going on over here? So you tell the child, well, little kids, they always say they want to get married and this and that. They're mamash getting. But in antiquity, Taka, there were times people were betrothed when they were very young. Right? The families got together. This. But we do have certain problems with it for obvious reasons. In terms of our sensibilities, when we start thinking like she was 3 and he was 40, so the two of them were davening in the room, and he's like with a little toddler. She learned to walk a year earlier, and she's a virtuoso in tefillah. That's very beautiful. But the whole idea that he's davening and she's like strange. And why are they davening? Because they can't have children. I mean, she's 3 years old. Even in antiquity, how many stories do you ever hear a 3-year-old having a child? It's right. You understand. So what are they davening that she's an akara? She's not akara. She's 3. Ibat shalosh ma. So give her. Even if you want to say she's going to be a teenager. Now there she is barren for 20 years. She's barren for 20 years. Yeah. Also, if she's 3 years old, just look at the words. V'hanara tovat mareh me'od. She's very beautiful. Now, could be a very beautiful 3-year-old girl, but you understand what's happening over here. That if the Eved Avram sees a 3-year-old, there's all these 20-year-old women walking around, and there's a 3-year-old. Oh, she's the best looking one here. You understand? You could say, no, she really was, and he was trying to marry her off to this great prince, Yitzchak Avinu. But so when the child comes home with the art project, they don't have to figure out all the problems, all the issues. You don't have to start, right? So I know there are these purists. They say, don't tell them that she's 3 years old. It's a terrible thing. No, it's a great thing. Chazal said it. The Seder Olam Rabbah said it. But you should just realize as you're growing with the story, you have to go back and say, wait a second, there's something here, But so in my house, we're very happy to say Rivka Imenu at the well is 3. But somehow by the time you get to the next week's Parsha Toldot, we don't say she's a 3-year-old on one side, she's playing with her toys and she's davening, and Yitzchak standing with his tilmul and he's shuckling on the other side. because he's so nervous that she hasn't had a child yet. Ibat shalosh. So, okay, enough said. Vayaratza eved likratab, verse 17. He runs over to her. The Torah goes out its way to say the Eved ran to her. Some of the Mepharshim say no one should claim the Rashar Hirsch writes this and others. It shouldn't be that anyone would say he's running after her to court her. As again, Seder Olam Rabbah says she's 3 or she's 14. Because I'll say she was a Nara. The Gemara, it sounds like she's whatever. Maybe not 14, maybe 18. I don't know. Maybe 20, whatever age she is. He's running as an Eved. He didn't want anyone to think that he's running after her to court her, proposition her, or something like that. He's going as an Eved. And he makes clear, even though he's a dignitary, that he's coming, so to speak, hat in hand. And that's why when he asks, Vayomer, he says right away, Hagmini namat mai mikadech. Can I have a sip from your pitcher? Now, this is kind of unwieldy. It's not like she has drinking cups with her. Straws, I don't think have been invented yet. I don't know. So I just don't know. So what a drinking straw, I mean. So what does it mean? Can you give me a sip? Right? Generally, you could say, no, Hagmini, it's a what's the word? It's a convention. Etiquette. May I have a sip? Or you could say, he's saying to her, can I have a sip from that gigantic thing that's on your shoulder that would be very hard for you to drink from? You know, it's unwieldy that your whole family has to drink from in a minute. So there are Mefarshim who say it in that direction as well. He was asking literally for one sip, right? So maybe the idea was that he was putting her almost in an impossible situation. Rabbi Soloveitchik says, what kind of a request was this? Just he writes it very beautifully. He writes as follows. Eliezer wanted to ascertain the motivation behind Rebecca's actions. Was it spiritual nobility and kindness or good manners and civility? Those are two different things. You can have good manners and civility. You don't necessarily have spiritual nobility and kindness. His requests were deliberately outrageous. Let me sip a little water from your pitcher, as opposed to asking her to hand him the pitcher. In other words, he told her that she was to draw water from the well and pour it into his mouth. Isn't this distasteful and tactless? Had she merely been polite instead of being a true exemplar of chesed, she would have splashed the water in his face. Why did he ask a young girl to water the camels, something women did not do in antiquity? Couldn't one of his servants have taken the pitcher down to the well, brought up the water, and taken care of the animals? Eliezer was testing her patience. She did not feel hurt. She was not repulsed by the newcomer's primitive bluntness and lack of good manners. She practiced hospitality, even though the traveler was coarse and rude. The quality of Erech HaPayim prevailed, and Rebecca became the mother of the nation. The Rav claims that Hagmini na ma'at mayim mikadech was code for not only for me, but also for the camels. Interesting, because I never saw it that way. I thought he asked about just her, and then she volunteered, right? So, in fact, when he davened, he said that the whole test was not that she was going to agree for him, but that she would take the initiative with regard to the animals. Vatomer shtei adoni vatmaher vatored kada al yada vatashkeu. So she put it low and helped him to drink. Vatechala hashkoto vatomer, and she takes the initiative. Gam ligmalacha eshav ad im kiluli shtot. I will also go draw for your camels until they drank enough. He asked for one sip, and now she signed herself up for going back again and again and again to keep filling the cod so that all the camels could drink. The Sforno says that she was waiting till he finished drinking before she said the next piece to make sure that he wouldn't choke, basically. Some write that really he was drinking like little sips. He was waiting to see what was going to happen, and she was waiting till it would be finished, and then she said to him the next piece. In other words, she wanted to enjoy the water when she gave it to him. Then she could take care of the animals next. But if she would have said it in one sentence, let me give to you and to the animals, so she would have been kind of saying, finish quick, I've got to get to the next piece, the next to mean to the animals. She took it was a two-step, and she also volunteered. Now we don't hear the reaction of Eliezer Eved Avram, but the test is already over, isn't it? Vatamaher v'ta'ar kadah el hashoket v'taratz od el be'er lisho v'tishav l'chol gmalav. She's going back again and again to the well, pouring it in the trough so that the camels can all drink. And we only find out in that after all that action, Va'ish mishta'ela. He's standing there pretty much shocked. He can't believe that it's he's astonished, shocked, in a state of bewilderment, almost like he wants to know. And what does he want to know? Ladat ha'itzliach Hashem darko imlo. So he wants to still know if God has caused his way to succeed. Right? Now, what does that mean? It could mean after she finished feeding all the camels, he has one more step, two-step verification. And that's the next pasuk. They finished drinking. He gives her all the jewelry. He gives her the gifts. Why did he give her the gifts?
Seals the deal.
Huh?
It seals the deal.
It seals the deal. He's pretty sure. But then he asked her, Vayomer bat mi'at. Then he asked her, whose daughter are you? Hagirina li, hayesh beit avich makom lanu lalin. Whose daughter are you? Please tell me.
Once he's given her the bracelets, so all that jewelry, how is it, if she says, I'm the daughter of the most wicked person in the world, how is he going to back out of it? Right. That doesn't make sense.
Right. So that's what I'm getting to. That's sort of the question. That Sror Hamor says that the reason why, that he gives her the, sorry. So there's a machloket Mefarshim. That's what I was going to say. Some of Mefarshim say he gave her the gifts already right now. He put it onto her hands, right? And that's it. That's what Amor says because her hands were tired. But there are a number of Rishonim who hold that maybe he didn't give her really all of this yet. But there's something that he's still waiting to find out. Right? Maybe he thought once all of the water was given, he still had one more question to ask. So he hasn't actually done it. He's going to do it. It's a little forced because what does vayikach mean? Yeah. But maybe he gave her the gifts not as a dowry, not as like a signal, you're it. Maybe he gave her the gifts as payment for being such a balat chesed, but he's still not sure if she's the right one, which would explain why it is that when he gives her this and he asks her the next question, he hasn't yet thanked God for answering his prayer. So keep reading. Chav Gimel. Vayomer bat mi'at hagirin ali hayesh beit avich makom lanu lalin. Verse 24. Pasuk Chav Daled. Vatomer ilav bat betuel anochi ben mikashi adal nachor. And he answers, she says again, Vatomer ilav gam tevim bamispo rav imanu gam makom lalun. Pasuk Chavav. Only now. Vayikod ha'ish vayishtachu Hashem. He bows down and he's thanking God. Vayomer baruch Hashem elokei Adoni Avram ashelo zav chasdom mitomim Adoni. Oh, this all worked out so beautifully. Why didn't he pray while the camels were drinking? So he could have given it to her and be saying, you're it, but now I have to check. He could have been giving it to her and saying, you're it, but let me ask you one more question before I daven. He could have not been giving it to her, but preparing to give it to her. He's going to give it to her, but there's one more question that comes up at the same time. And that is, whose daughter are you? And it could be, and here this is kind of layered, in verse 20, verse 20, she's filling up and pouring out, filling and pouring up. While that's happening, he's astonished. He's waiting to see if Hashem is causing him to be successful. And when they finish, that's when he gave her these things. But the questions themselves might have been asked while she's doing the pouring. Here we're up to Ein Mukdam Meuchar B'Torah. While she's in the process, he's having a little conversation with her. And then we have the giving of when she finished, he knew what it was. He gave her the gifts and he bowed down. We'll have to answer the question. Yeah, but why is it out of order? Right? Lori first and then Karen. Just unmute. Yeah.
Okay, I'm unmuted. A few things. One, I don't think the question that we're asking is the right question. The question we're asking that we should maybe ask is, why is it only when he finds out whose family she's from that he says now, Baruch Hashem, Elokei Adonai Abraham Asher Lo Azav Chasto? Because really, when Abraham makes him promise, he does not tell him that you need to get somebody from my family.
That's my whole point at the beginning of the shir. Exactly.
Right. He tells him it has to be from the place where I'm from, but he doesn't say my family. And when Eliezer makes his declaration of what he's hoping is going to happen, which is a tefillah or is something wrong. Either way, again, he is not saying that this has to be somebody from the family. So as soon as he is in the right place where Abraham wanted him to be, and this girl does exactly what he was hoping would happen to show him that this is a sign from Hashem that she's the right person, of course he is excited and thinks he's found the right person and gives her everything. So the question really is, everything's been fulfilled. Why does he wait to get excited until he finds out she's from the family? Which maybe is just an added bonus, but is not, it doesn't matter. If he found out right now, you're not from that family, he's still going to take her. She fulfills the criteria.
Agreed. This is exactly part of the question that, Avram did not specify. That's what I was saying at the beginning of this year. Avram did not specify this at the beginning. But Eliezer, it's like the added bonus. Now, by the way, I want to fill out who the people are. When I said, there's some say it's a fair number of people that hold that, even though it's written a certain way here, it's not actually how the sequencing really went down. How do we know? Because we have the story, and then uniquely in the Torah, we have the report of the story. And the story is told by Eliezer in the presence of Rivka. Both of them were in the story just a few hours earlier, a few minutes earlier, whatever it is. And in that version, Vayish'al ota va'omar bat mi'at v'chulei, etc., v'gomer, v'asim hanezim ala pav atzmidim al yadea. Then I gave it to her after I asked her the question. So the Reb Saadia Gaon, the Rashbam, the Ibn Ezra, the Rabbeinu Bechaye, the Rosh, the Ralbag, the Michel, the Kidat Yitzchak, the Radak, they say that she only gave it to her after she answered the questions. So there has to be some kind of sequencing here now. But that's the Inyan. Like, even in his tefillah, Eliezer does not say, and it should be someone from Avram's family. Right. That was like gravy. That was like, and you're also from the family? Wow, this is for sure, right? So, and that was the point I was making, was even what he had set up as like the so-called test, it's not impossible that there was a kind person, Mechasidei Umot Ha'olam, someone else who was not Jewish, who was not, no one's Jewish, but someone who's not of the B'nai Noach, someone who, right? It could be. That's not how it played out. And clearly he's taking a certain initiative here where he feels that if he also finds out this part, it gives us the sort of the gushpanka, that he didn't find a halo around this woman's head or like a light shining, but he found a light shining. And that was that she's related to Avram. She's the great niece of this one on one side and a great niece on the other side. Great. This is perfect. And according to, again, it's many Mefarshim, that's how it went. By the way, there's a lot of Mefarshim who hold the other way, because then the question is going to be for them. So why did Eliezer switch the order when he got to their house? Why would he change the order? Rivka would have said, that's not what just happened. I was just there.
But it makes sense that he would change the order, because when he wants to tell the family that he wants her for a bride for his servant, for his, for his master's child.
Yeah.
So he wants to put the emphasis on, and when I found out that she was from this
Yeah,
family, wow,
yeah.
now it's a yichus and I want her. Is
Yeah.
it possible? He has to ingratiate himself to them.
Yeah.
He's asking to take their daughter away to a foreign place. She's not going to see them anymore. But the Torah, why would the Torah have told it out of order? If it happened differently, why would not in Eliezer's version, I'm saying, in the version of telling us while it's happening, what's in it for the Torah to tell it to us out of order?
Right. So again, some of the Mepharshim want to split. He took the nose ring, the nezem, and he took the bracelets, and he put the bracelets on her hands. What didn't he place? He didn't place the ring. When was that? That's after the interview. It kind of split it. So, but point being, you have to put it all together because it's showing that he's prepping the next part, and that part of it he gave, maybe more of like a thank you for what she did, and then the second part comes, comes after. By the way, Rashi holds like you, Lori. After he gave her the stuff, he gave her all the gifts. According to Rashi, all the gifts. Gave her the ring and he gave her the bracelets. Then he asked her, why? He was sure that if this is how it happened, and it was so quick, it wasn't a coincidence. It's what had to be. It's what's meant to be. It's what Hashem wanted. It's what Avraham said in the charge he gave me. He was batuach in the zchut of Avraham. It worked. And this was now, he asked her, why did he ask her, whose child are you? Not to confirm, but just to know, now, what's your yichus? And why is it, and it's in the same sentence as, does your father's house have a place for us to sleep? That's not part of the test, right? But if she's a Balad Ches, it stands to reason she's also hospitable, and she's going to do the great value of the Jewish people, of the Zera Avraham or the Zera Terach, maybe you could say it a certain way, Achnasat Orchim. So I'll ask. And by the way, look what he said. He didn't say, do you have a house? He said, Beit Avich. Beit Avicha, remember? And now Eliezer fills in the Beit Avich part. And she says, yes, indeed, we have, and we're going to welcome you, right? And here you have also, she's Bat Bituel. I'm the daughter of Bituel. Bituel's her father. But I'm also the granddaughter of, let me tell you my Bubby and my Zadie's name, Milka and Nachor. What are you bringing it up? What do I need to hear the Bubby and the Zadie's name? If someone asks you what your name is, and you tell them your name, you don't have a last name, it's antiquity. You say, I'm the child of so-and-so. You have to go to the Bubby and the Zadie? Oh, because we understand why the Bubby and Zadie have to be mentioned here. She tells him, now he learns what we already knew a few psukim ago. Wow, because you never mentioned, why do you mention the Bubby? The Bubby and the Zadie? Because this is the line. Comes from Bubby Zadie. I know the sponsorship today is for parents, for grandparents. We learn about the importance of knowing one's yichus, from where one comes, to know their roots, and particularly on a day of Tu B'Shvat, it's a good day to talk about roots and growth and a family tree. And he writes, and the people from whom we learned should be a zchut for the neshamot, Yehi Zichron Baruch, and also for Shalema, for those who need it, and good things. Much more to say. We're out of time this week. Next week, in Yirtzeh Hashem, we will have a shiur. In 2 weeks, if all goes well, there will probably not be a shiur, but I'm not 100% sure. But next week, there will be a shiur.